natural family. As goes the family, so goes the nation. Our call-in number is 614-423-4220. Love to hear from you this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Houston, we have a problem. Apparently, Mr. Anderson, on the eve, maybe in the honor of the 1 year anniversary of our newest president, he was inaugurated 1 year ago.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
The U.S. government is shut down in his honor. And the source, well, options vary. And opinions vary. And the Tinfoil Hat Club is going wild because how can all those current and ex-deep staters be arrested if the government doesn't pay for it? Oh my. Oh my. Who do you think will go first? What's the over-under on Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton?
Boy, that is... I hear all kinds of stories, like they're walking around with ankle bracelets on.
Yeah. By the way, the obfuscation in terms of the shutdown is already going on, and it's incredible. It's not just about DACA, the Dems say. Nope. It's about funding Puerto Rico. Or it's about children's health care, or it's about this or that or the other. But not DACA. Certainly DACA didn't stop this. Well, let me tell you something. If DACA would have been part of that bill, with all due respect to Puerto Rico and the children, the government would not have shut down. So let's cut the bull, okay? DACA is the reason that the government shut down, with the exception, of course, of the IRS. I heard a congressman say the other day, and it just tickled me. America was created by geniuses and is run by idiots. And by the way, those idiots are the ones that you and I elected, right? You ought to be proud. Folks, let's be honest here and open our eyes. We do not have a government funding problem, an immigration problem, an economic problem. Our nation, the land of the free and the home of the brave, the nation that people outside of it are willing to risk their lives to get into. Remember last week when we talked about the French Revolution? That nation had what? That's right, they had a moral problem. Which is not the result of our newest president, nor for that matter, not even Congress. The moral issue is a direct result of a family dilemma that has been allowed to develop in this great land. The old saying does stand true. As goes the family, so goes the nation. If you dig back in history, first of all, you're going to find out that the family, one man, one woman, and their tribe, if you will, and their extended tribe, but it was always one man and one woman. And it was the family. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Bible thumpers. There were several non-monogamous members of the Bible, but as intended, it is one man and one woman in a lifelong committed relationship, monogamous, with their biological and or adopted children. That's the key, that's the cornerstone, that's the foundation of any good society. Our friend Elizabeth Johnson was on a very well-known talk radio show the other day. And she tried to bring up the subject of the natural family. Of course, they wanted to take it into the perversions that are going on and the other things that are attacking the natural family, although they don't want to recognize it. They want to recognize those as the problems. The problem is that we don't have a solid foundation. We don't have a structure, a building structure. The family provides that building structure. Man, woman, children.
I'd like to add that that structure is the key structure to any structure, which is a foundation.
Yep.
If you don't have that foundation, everything you put on top of it,
It's going to crumble.
it's going to wobble, that's for sure.
It's going to be built on sand. Wow. Keep that in mind. In our young nation, the Bible is used as a textbook for the purpose of teaching children moral principles to live by. As time went on, the Bible was gradually replaced by other textbooks such as Noah Webster's Primer. Webster's Primer taught children to spell, but was also filled with moral biblical verses. In front of his primer was his picture with the inscription, "Who taught millions to read, but not one to sin." He taught millions to read, but not one to sin. Of course, this is just the exact opposite of the school curriculum today. The courts in this country have revised the First Amendment, thus erecting a wall of atheism around every public school in America. You know, I can't really say it's atheism because they will allow Muslims in to pray and to practice. And we're maybe talking today about what's going on in West Virginia. But the basis is the Bible. And again, that's the opposite of the curriculum today.
Another brick in the foundation.
Yep,
Oops, another brick in the foundation.
gotcha.
I had to repeat myself, I was on mute.
And by the way, this wall of atheism that I just spoke about is not the same wall our current president is speaking about, nor is it the same wall that Thomas Jefferson envisioned, the wall between church and state. John Adams. By the way, we have a couple tremendous guests this morning. David Author, backed by popular demand, and we're going to talk about the moral failings in America and about an agenda that's going on. And, of course, Farrah Prudence, who is an ex-Muslim and can tell us an awful lot about how that, I don't want to call it a religion.
Agenda.
That agenda, yeah, is destroying the natural family. Again, the natural family is the key. I don't care however you try to do it. Again, if I get back to Elizabeth Johnson, as much as she tried to bring in the natural family, the guest host tried to change the subject to the more tempting, or the more sounding. Sounds great, you know. People know about this, so we'll talk about that. It's kind of dull and boring, excuse me, to talk about the natural family. But it isn't, because we've seen what happens when we let it go. We're talking about the founders. John Adams, in a speech to the military in 1798, warned his fellow countrymen, stating, "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion." And he's talking about Christianity. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Noah Webster, the Christian religion in its purity is the basis, or rather the source, of all genuine freedom in government. The Bible says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. I hope that helps you understand better that verse. Because if you don't have the Spirit of God, the Ten Commandments, if you will, the do's and the don'ts, then what do you have? You have no structure. Like today, you don't have the family structure. And the family structure is built on the Bible. Noah Webster, the Christian religion in its purity is the basis, or rather the source, of all genuine freedom in government. And I am persuaded that no civil government of a republican form, freedom, can exist and be durable in which the principles of that religion have not a controlling influence. Remember the wall of separation between atheism and our schools? There's a reason for that, folks. Governor Morris, penman and signer of the Constitution, avoiding the extremes of despotism and anarchy, the only ground of hope must be on the morals of the people. I believe that religion is the only solid base of morals, and that morals are the only possible support of free government. Therefore, government education should teach the precepts of religion and the duty of man towards God. We're back to that structure again, aren't we? James Wilson, signer of the Constitution and the U.S. Supreme Court Justice. Human law must rest in authority, ultimately upon the authority that the law, which is divine, far from being rivals or enemies, religion and law are twin sisters, friends, and mutual assistance. Indeed, these two sciences run into each other. Religion is that thread that holds the law together, folks. Benjamin Franklin, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. Excuse me. Our nations become corrupt and vicious. They have more need of masters. Whereas in religion, without this, there can be no virtue. Without virtue, there can be no liberty. And liberty is the object of all republican governments. Without religion, I believe that learning does real mischief to the morals and mankind. In about 2 minutes, we're going to have our friend David Author with us on the air. And we're going to talk about the moral decay in America. And about a plan that was hatched several decades ago. Actually, there was several plans hatched several decades ago, Communist Manifesto being one, but this is going to be an addition to it. And you're going to find it very interesting. And we're going to talk about, we just talked about education. We're going to talk about what's happening at Ohio State University. Ohio, the heart of it all. About a course that's being offered. Masculinity simultaneously harms yet privileges is what the syllabus for the course states. Ohio State course reprimands white, heterosexual masculinity. Sounds like a Me Too type of movement, doesn't it, Mr. Anderson?
Sort of.
Sort of?
Sort of. I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yep. I'm going to go a little bit of that, and we're going to have David. We're going to take a quick break. David will be right with you. This is B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last call on WNFFradio.com. We are family. Oh, you are good, Mr. Anderson. You're on your game this morning.
Faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with B.J. Edwards on WTVOradio.com.
Everyone can see we're together as we walk on by.
Ohio State University, the Buckeyes, the Ohio State University. A class taught this spring at Ohio State University will review a parade of reasons why white, heterosexual masculinity is allegedly problematic, tackling the topic from the construction of racial issues, bullying, pop culture, societal expectations, and much more. The course, Be a Man, Masculinities, Race and Nation, includes a variety of readings that end, including the required text, Dude, You're a Fag, by C.J. Pascoe, which analyzes masculinity as not only a genderized process, but a sexual one. The Amazon description of the course is very interesting. Other assigned reading excerpts include Masculinity as Homophobia by Michael Kimmel, Advertising and Construction of a Violent White Masculinity, Dude Sex, Dudes Have Sex with Dudes by Jane Ward, Looking for My, and I can't mention this word, but in hockey they call it right near the 5-hole. And that's, wow. That's by Richard Fung. Sodomy, the New World by Jonathan Goldberg, and The Teaching Men's Rear End Pleasure by Susan Sturritz. David Arthur, a former transgender, former homosexual. Welcome again to Last Call, brother.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be here.
Hey, what is going on?
You know, this isn't just in Ohio, this course. Upon some investigation, this course is at, it actually stemmed from some liberal or left program that was in D.C. The pilot was called Rethink Masculinity, but it goes on to University of Wisconsin, Brown University, Duke University, State University of New York, Rutgers, University of South Carolina, and the list goes on. University of Florida. They all have these classes to feminize men, to take away masculinity, and they're all targeted at the Anglo-Saxon heterosexual male. And a lot of them refer to a group, a very liberal group, an anti-God group called NOMAD in Colorado, which is like a national organization for men against sexism. They're pro-feminist, they're pro-abortion, they affirm the LGBTP for pedophile movement. They're anti-God, and so it's not just Ohio, but see, and college isn't even the barrier or the line for them, because they're in all schools, even in elementary schools. We can look at California right now, with the governor of California is forcing all school-age children in public schools to have a class to view homosexual sex because they need to know about it. And this is a forced program. This is something that's mandatory, all school-age children. So in California, if your child is in school, they will have to watch gay pornography in order to get through the day in school.
A Ohio State course is ultimately presented as a study in feminist masculinity that seeks to explain how ideas about masculinity simultaneously harm yet privilege men.
And that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, this is like this. I'm surprised it hasn't come out yet, and I hope nobody gets this idea. But this is like Homer Simpson on female steroids, and I would hate to see what that cartoon would look like. What's the intent here? Obviously, from a spiritual standpoint, Satan destroying the family. I mean, that's the first thing God made, and in the garden, it started right there when Satan started questioning Eve. Well, did not, and why don't you try this? Just do one thing, Eve. I'm just asking you to do one thing, and if nothing happens, then what's the problem? And isn't that the kind of the mentality we're hearing here? Just try homosexuality. You at least need to try it. Then what?
Well, see, that's exactly what they're doing. And so this course and all these college courses, if these boys have made it through all their other schooling and made it to college and they still have any masculinity left, then it's time to attack it and show them that it's wrong to be masculine, that it is wrong to want to be a man, and it's wrong to be aggressive. You have to be submissive. So everything that makes our boys is being taken away from them early on. And all the things that are meant to equate our young men to being strong, masculine protectors is now being taught as evil. And this whole movement, the LGBT P for pedophile movement, which includes the abortionist movement, the feminist movement, the pedophile movement. They're taking away everything that makes our boys boys. But, gentlemen, they've already told us they were going to do this. From 1972, when they wrote the very first the gay rights platform, as they called it, until 1987 when the overhauling of straight America came out and the homosexual manifesto. You know, they made demands on federal levels and state levels, demands that would encourage and support sex education courses prepared and taught by gay women and gay men, presenting homosexuality as a valid, healthy preference and lifestyle, which is a death style, as a viable alternative to heterosexuality. They demanded federal funding of programs for gay men and gay women organizations that are designed to alleviate the problems encountered by gay women and gay men, which are engendered by an oppressive, sexist society. And this is 1972, so this is right at the time, the very same year, that the American Psychiatric Association changed in their book the definition of homosexual from a mental disorder to a sexual orientation. So when they started making these demands, people started giving into them almost instantaneously. The access that they want to the children, it is evident by them wanting to be into the sex education courses. They want into the school systems. They want the gay men and gay women to be teaching your children. And so if it's not good enough, you know, I mean, just recently in California, there was a little girl who went home crying because the teacher brought a transgender child into the classroom, and they removed the little girl's dress, and she was a little boy underneath. And the little girl went home crying to mommy and said, "Am I going to turn into a boy like the little girl in school?" And this is what they're doing right now in this country. I mean, we already know that Canada is, they actually limit the parents' rights over under the child's rights.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In Canada, if a child gets confused by this agenda, or a teacher or a counselor, and if the child thinks they should be that they're different, or they get confused, and now you have a teacher or a counselor that takes them in, and they say that the child should be on puberty blockers, the parents have no right to say no, they can't get on puberty blockers. No, they can't get on hormone pills to be the opposite sex, because then Canada will just remove the child from the home altogether.
You can't drive.
Wrong.
You can't drive until you're 16 or 18. You can't drink until you're 18 or 21. You can't vote. But yet, a child, with the help of school officials, can choose their own sex as early as 5 years old, or 6, whenever they
right
get
here
in
in the state of Maine. In the city of Florida, the Barbara Bush Hospital just lowered the age of consent for puberty blockers to 8 years old. So at 8 years old, if a child says that, yes, I feel like I'm supposed to be the opposite sex, then they can be put on puberty blockers, and the parents have no rights to stop it.
Yes. You
want to know what I think is pretty amazing about all this? Because, you know, I mean, they demanded repeal of laws governing the age of sexual consent, and they've been dropped from 16 to 15 to 14 to 12 in some areas. They want to restrict the sex or number of persons entering into a marriage unit, and the extension of the benefits that go to all of those involved. They want to make marriage and the family unit absolutely what it's not, what it never was, what it wasn't created or intended to be. But what I find really fascinating about this, BJ and Mr. Anderson, is that they are attacking masculinity. They want all masculine men and boys to be unmasculine, so they want them to be feminine. But if you do some research on pedophile characteristics and then look at what the top attraction is for a pedophile, it's a smooth and soft, also
Child.
known as feminine, boy. So boys are being feminized and purposely confused